The NFL opening line report, week number 2, arguably the most important NFL opening line report of the season. But hey, they are all important. And because Teddy covers the mainstay of this show, I am just alongside Drew Martin. Guys, we'll get you on the right side of some of these moves for week 2 in the NFL. Without further ado, my partner in crime, Teddy covers. Teddy, welcome on in, buddy. How you feeling?
Well, we had a winning day in the NFL on Sunday. I didn't win on Thursday or Friday, which was a little bit frustrating, but we had a nice day, a solid day yesterday. No complaints in that regard. I want to talk about a couple things right at the top. First, maybe most importantly, you comment, we listen. This week, we'll have the lines on the screen like you asked for last week. Please keep those comments and suggestions coming. We appreciate them each and every week. And, of course, the comments and the likes and the suggestions make all the difference in terms of the YouTube algorithms. What do we have? 18,000 views last week. Awesome. Second, week 2, I should say, is overreaction week. I'm just going to give you 2 stats. Since 2010, teams off a win, straight up win, versus teams off a straight up loss in week 1. So the winning team, the team that looks good versus the team that looks bad. Well, the winning team's 45, 64, and 3 against the spread. That's 41% long term. Game 2 off a loss as a favorite. Those teams have been pretty darn good. 44 and 34 against the spread since 2010. So a couple of prevailing trends. Everyone is going to react to what they just saw. The long-term data shows pretty clearly you don't necessarily want the teams off a win. You want the teams that look bad last week in general in week number 2.
Love the stats there, Teddy. Some good trends to get us going for week 2. Guys, a little promo for you. 30 days, NFL and college football for just $199. Big discount there. So you can get 30 days NFL, college football, all the picks in your inbox. Just $199. Huge savings there for both Teddy Covers and Drew Martin. We get it every handicapper actually at WagerTalk.com. And also, Teddy, we got that starts tomorrow. Okay, so not today.
Yeah,
on Tuesday that starts. Mm-hmm. So
take advantage
for
of
everybody
that.
Watching.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off while you're doing a great promo, but 30 days for a $199 pro in college. It's a good deal if you want to get on board. Take advantage of this offer. No promo code needed. Comes up on Tuesday. It'll be up all week at WagerTalk and SportsMemo.com.
And Teddy, for this year, are we hitting the Monday nighter? I mean, of course, we're doing this 10 a.m. Pacific on Monday, but should we just go right into the Thursday nighter, or do you want to throw out something?
Let's do Monday night at the end, quick if we have time, because there's nothing going on with tonight's line. It's sitting at 4.5. It's going to sit at 4.5. There's nothing doing, but if we have time at the end, we'll get to it. But let's start with the Thursday night. Let's make it a true look-ahead opening line report. So we're talking about the week 2 numbers, where the lines open, where we expect them to move, and a little bit of early handicap.
Well, I'm teeing it up for you, buddy, as we got Thursday, September 12th, 103, 104. We're going down in rotation order, 5:15 p.m. Pacific kick in Miami Gardens. A little AFC East battle here, a rivalry, if you will. Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. We're seeing Dolphins right now, Teddy, -2, -2.5 actually, seems to be the consensus line. 50.5 being the total. Bills at Dolphins, Miami Gardens, Thursday night, TC.
Yeah, if you notice, the graphics are going to be talking more about the openers, but even that's not the opening nine. That's kind of it. Yeah, the graphics are going to talk about the openers. We'll talk about where the money is flowing. And with each and every game throughout the course of the regular season, I'm going to give you 4 different point spreads. The first one is the look-ahead line. This is a bettable line on this game from last week. I use the Westgate Superbook numbers. They post numbers a week ahead of time. So the look-ahead numbers will give us an idea of how much the markets have actually moved off the performance of one game. The second number I'm going to give you is my powering number. Team A minus Team B, home field, bang. Pure math. I don't put situations in my powering numbers. So that's just Team A versus Team B and the home field factored in. The third number I'm going to give you is the opener for every game. So where the lines open. I track 5 books. I use what I consider to be a consensus opener from those 5 books. So it's not one book posting a number that's off market and then all of a sudden that's the opener all week. It's not the case. So I use 5 different books, both global and here in the U.S., to call what I consider the opener. I usually mark that down Sunday night, 6, 7 o'clock Pacific time. And then we could talk about where the money is flowing today, the current number. That's the fourth number I'm going to talk about when it comes to this opening line report. So every game's going to have 4 different point spreads, but oftentimes they're pretty darn close. For example, this game, the Bills and the Dolphins. Look at line, Miami -2, total of 50.5. My powering number is 1.5 for the game. It opened 1.5, 50.5 last night. We have seen Miami money up to 2.5 and a little bit of under money, 50.5 down to 50. Some of the Miami money, I believe, may have come with Josh Allen's hand injury. He finished the game with his non-throwing hand wrapped. He said he was fine, but that is some concern. I was impressed with Buffalo yesterday. I had to play on Arizona. It was a wrong side. I was lucky to cash. I'll take it. But, the Bills had 14 plays of 10 or more yards on offense. They got punched in the face, and they punched back hard. Sean McDermott, we got down early in the game, and they were fighting back from there. I think that, in and of itself, is a great sign for our football team. Remember, Buffalo jettisoned a lot of veterans this offseason. The youngsters played well. Miami, we saw before the game an incident that absolutely affected the handicap. We talked about Hill getting arrested or handcuffed, after whatever, he was reckless driving. You probably shouldn't do that right around the stadium when there's a bunch of cops. But after he was stopped, the situation went downhill. Calais Campbell got involved, and the team came out and was like asleep in the first half. They fell down 14-0 against Jacksonville. It was clear what happened before the game affected their energy. Tua gave an impassioned halftime address. Quote, "We just needed to get our head out of our butt." He called it his teammates, he called it his coaches. He says that was it. And obviously Miami came back in the second half and played much better than they did in the first half. They did not, however, get the money for their backers. Neither did both these two teams in the we won but didn't cover scenario. Look, I don't know that Miami gets to 3. They might. The early money's come from Miami, but 2.5 to me feels like where this number's sitting. I don't think there's any urgency to get down on Miami Buffalo on Monday morning.
Great start here, Teddy. As we flip the script, guys, Sunday, September 15th, going down in rotation order. 10 a.m. Pacific kicks up first here. 263, 264, Las Vegas Raiders at the Baltimore Ravens. We are seeing Ravens -9 in the hook at most shops right now, TC. 41.5 to as high as 42.5 being the total. We get West Coast to East Coast, actually, for the 2 top games on the card for Sunday, but it's Raiders at Ravens, first game up on Sunday.
Dan, we've got an emergency betting alert. Let's get it going. Still got the Wayne's World. I love it. This is one where if you want to take Baltimore, you want to do it right now. Look headline on this was 843.5. The Ravens played to the point spread. The Raiders were pretty awful yesterday, and the markets are reacting to that this morning. My powering number on the game was 10. The markets opened, again, like the look headline, 8.5. We've seen nothing but Baltimore money so far. And again, I'm not convinced it's going to go above 10, but with the West Coast team traveling east, with Baltimore coming off a loss, we can anticipate Ravens money coming in if you want Baltimore, that it's sooner rather than later. And of course, we talk about the Raiders yesterday. Of course, look ahead line here. I just did all that. Yeah. The Raiders, fourth quarter, down 6, 4th and 1 from the Chargers, 43-yard line. And Antonio Pierce punted, and the game was over. LA touchdown on the next 2 days. And he defended it after the game. Quote, we got what we wanted. We got them backed up. We got 3 timeouts there. Play good football, get the ball back at midfield, hopefully. They broke off a long run, and that was the end of it. We considered going for it. It was a long 1 yard for a first down. We got stopped early in the game. Momentum. The punter had done a good job pinning those guys back. I think he had 2 or 3 punts inside the 20. Again, the defense was the strength for the most part of the game. Now, no NFL team had punted on 4th and 1 inside their opponent's territory when trailing by 1 score in the fourth quarter since 2016. Let me repeat that. No NFL team, all 32 teams, none of them had punted 4th and 1 inside their opponent's territory when trailing by 1 score in the fourth in the last 8 years. And Pierce did it yesterday. Minshew isn't going to win you any games. The Raiders were -3 in turnovers. They got stopped on downs on 4th and 1 in their own territory. The defense didn't force any. There's not a lot to like about the Raiders' performance yesterday because the Chargers didn't play well and the Raiders didn't sniff a cover. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson was kind of unstoppable. He did miss a couple of open receivers in the end zone on the last drive, but he can between passing and rushing nearly 400 yards. Derrick Henry had an impact. When you talk about likely Bateman, Hill, Flowers, Andrews, all of a sudden Baltimore is absolutely loaded with receiving weapons. And I couldn't find the quote, but I heard it. I'm going to paraphrase it. Lamar Jackson after the game to KC, that'll be the worst game we play all year. We can anticipate Baltimore money in this one. Raiders look pretty bad, and the Ravens are pretty hungry.
Teddy, I get a quick handicapping question for you. I think it matters more in the later season, but do you give any advantage to the Ravens because they got extra preparation here playing on Thursday against the Chiefs, whereas the Raiders had to play on Sunday? Okay.
Yes, I would absolutely give them, and not a huge edge, but, a quantifiable half point. I didn't put in my powering number, but I think it's reasonable.
Okay. Guys, we got 265, 266 up next, 10 a.m. Pacific kick. LA Chargers at Carolina Panthers, west to east coast again here with the Chargers. Minus 6-point road favorites, 39 and a hook being the total, Teddy.
Look headline here, LA minus 3.5, 42. My powering number, Chargers minus 6.5. Markets open 5/5.5 last night, 39.5, and have moved to 6 this morning. No surprise. Look, let's be real about the Carolina Panthers. Okay, this was a team that was supposed to be, if not the worst, them in New England and the Giants were supposed to be the 3 worst teams in the league. So 2 of the 3 worst teams had awful week ones. Carolina was supposed to be awful. They were awful last year. And there was no team that looked worse. Well, the Giants might have looked worse. Carolina looked awful. All right. Bryce Young was hopeless in that ballgame. They only had 58 yards rushing. The longest rush was 8 yards. They were 1 of 10 on third downs, 3 turnovers. The defense allowed 180 on the ground. They allowed scores on each of the Saints' first 9 drives. Canales, the new head coach. The nature of the loss matters, but whether it was by 3 points or as much as it was today, you just have to count them as a loss and then move forward. Yeah, I get it. Bryce Young, this doesn't define us. It's a long year. Yeah, I get it. Carolina, we're not going to see a public dollar on Carolina this week. And so far, the wise guys haven't bet them either. Although the Chargers, they had 5 first downs going into the fourth quarter, and we're still winning and covering, which tells you 2 things. 1, the defense played great. 2, the Raiders aren't all that good. They allowed 1 rushing first down all game. Herbert only 144 passing yards, but no mistakes. The offense, 0 turnovers. The defense forced 3. And Brandon Staley fans will remember, this is of all the stats, this is the one that Chargers fans are most appreciative of. They went 0 for 0 on 4th downs in that ballgame. Derwin James, great quote. He described it as complimentary football all around. This is the first time I feel like we actually played real complimentary football from where the offense was struggling a little bit, and we picked them up, and then we gave up a play, and they came back and gave us a play, gave us a big first down. So certainly I thought the Chargers were a little bit overrated coming into the season. I had the Raiders yesterday. That was my loser on Sunday. All that being said, Chargers looked better than I thought they were, and they were able to win and cover despite their offensive woes. They're likely to be a popular choice this week, Carolina. Nobody wants Carolina.
New Orleans and the Dallas Cowboys up next, guys, as we're seeing Cowboys -6 in the hook in the global market, mostly -7s in Las Vegas, Teddy. So it's Cowboys hosting the Saints here, 45.5 being the total. Cowboys minus the 6.5.
The look headline here, Dallas -6.5, total 49.5. Sorry, 44.5. That's a 4, not a 9. I apologize. My chicken scratch is sometimes hard to read. My powering number had Dallas 7 over New Orleans in this ballgame. The markets opened 6.5, 45.5 last night. And you talked about it. You can find a 6.5 right now. You can find a 7 right now. If you like the Saints, find a 7. If you like Dallas, find a 6.5. Or just wait until later in the week and let the markets decide for you. Look, the Saints were great yesterday. Of course, it was Carolina. It's like playing the White Sox in baseball. You kind of discount the stats a little bit. But 180 rushing yards, Derek Carr, 3 touchdowns, no picks. They only took 1 sack in the ballgame. They went 4 for 4 red zone touchdowns. They were +2 in turnovers. Defense forced 3. They scored in their first 9 possessions. It was 30-0 before halftime. It was the blowout of the day. Clint Kubiak, the new offense coordinator, Alvin Kamara, talking about it. Quote, "That's what we made some changes for. I've been here a while. I know what it's supposed to feel like, and it felt good today." So the Saints certainly played great, but the markets aren't going to give the Saints a whole lot of respect for that win. They need to beat or compete with Dallas before we start seeing the power rate numbers really change for New Orleans. For the Cowboys, they played great too. The first two plays, they had a penalty and then a sack. And then next thing you know, boom, 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 they put up 20 on the scoreboard. They had a punt return touchdown. It really was a dominant performance in all three phases of the game. And one of the keys, and this is a nightmare for me, couldn't imagine a worst case scenario than this. I have Dallas season total under. Part of the handicap, a big part of the handicap, was all the contracts and all of these unsigned players and the quarterbacks not signed and CeeDee Lamb's not signed. In the last week, Dallas signed CeeDee Lamb, and then right before kickoff, they signed Dak Prescott to the long-term deal. And Prescott played great and talked about how now he's got something to prove and live up to expectations. And for someone that has a Cowboys season ticket, season win bet on the under, that's certainly not what I wanted to hear. So from a power rating standpoint, the Prescott contract and the Lamb contract together are meaningful for my power rating number for Dallas. I raised them a lot from where I had them in earlier August.
269-270 up next. Tampa Bay and Detroit. We are seeing the Lions -6. There is a -6 in the hook out there, Teddy. Total 50 and a hook. So it's the Bucs at the Lions from the Motor City.
Yeah, look ahead line was I apologize. I think it's 6.5 that I wrote there. It was either 6 or 6.5, 48.5. My powering number is 6. The market's open 6 and 50.5. So we're talking about Detroit, and they're still sitting at 6 at 50.5. So we're talking about Detroit is less than a touchdown pretty much everywhere. You know, the Lions, they blew the lead. They rallied late. They forced overtime. They win an OT, Sunday night game, national TV audience. It's not necessarily a great spot for Detroit the following week. Dan Campbell said that this quote is more prescient than any quote I read all weekend. Quote, "Early in the season, a lot of games come down to who makes the fewest mistakes. We made one less than they did." And that really is what it is. Week 1, week 2 in the NFL, a lot of times it's who screws up more than who plays great. And the Lions screwed up a little bit less yesterday than the Rams. Impressive come from behind wins. You know, Tampa looked really good yesterday. You know, I talked a lot in the preseason about Tampa potentially being an undervalued commodity, and they came out yesterday and looked like an undervalued commodity. They scored on 7 of the first 8 meaningful possessions. Baker had 31 dropbacks, 21 for 4 completions, only 1 sack, a 4-0 touchdown to interception ratio. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans looked great. You know, the quote from Godwin, "We got to spread it around a bunch. A lot of guys got the ball. I think we have the potential to be a really dominant offense." However, you want to talk about a red flag for Tampa Bay. Here's a red flag for Tampa Bay. 3 of their 4 active cornerbacks were hurt in yesterday's ball game. Bryce Hall got carted off the field. They had Christian Izien lined up at outside cornerback. The last time he lined up at cornerback was his sophomore year in high school. Okay. They got a rookie, Tyrick Thunderberg, an undrafted free agent at Appalachian State. He had a good training camp. He was put on the practice squad. No, he was inactive on Sunday. Todd Bowles, quote, "He's definitely going to have to be on deck." So it looks like Tampa is going to go and face the Lions with a cornerback core that is backups, rookies, practice squad guys. And that's not necessarily what you want to see against Jared Goff and company.
Great point there, Teddy. As guys, we move down the list here. 271-272, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, Indianapolis and Green Bay up next here, TC, as we get the Colts -3 with juice, but mostly -3.5 right now as the road favorite, 41 being the total.
Yeah, so look ahead line here for Indy and Green Bay is Packers -5, total 47. And then Jordan Love gets hurt. Now, the backup for Jordan Love, so look at his 5 and 47. My powering number, I adjusted a full touchdown for the Love injury. I don't know if that was enough. And I'll explain why in a minute. My powering number came Indy 2.5. The markets have come even higher. 3 now up to 3.5. I mean, it was a split line last night, 3 minus juice at 3.5. And really, that's still what we're seeing today. More 3.5. That's mostly 3.5s out there right now. Total 41, still sitting at 41 as we speak. Malik Willis didn't spend the offseason in Green Bay, didn't spend training camp in Green Bay. He arrived at the very end of training camp. They know the terminology. And Malik Willis has been awful in the NFL. He had 67 career pass attempts over 2 years in Tennessee and the Titans. And I agreed with the move, said, forget this guy. He was their QB of the future. He is not. All right. He's not that good, to put it mildly. Now, look, the Packers offense with Love, 29 points, 7.1 yards per play. They allowed only 5.5. They were +2 in turnovers. They ran for 7 yards a carry. You're supposed to win those games, and they lost. Matt LaFleur, we got to learn from this, because just watching this tape, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Philly, they battled, they played their game, but I think there's a lot of opportunities that we didn't capitalize. I agree, but this is a backup quarterback I'm not putting my money on. Anthony Richardson did some sick stuff yesterday, and Indy took shots. He had 3 completions of 50 yards or longer in that ballgame. Pierce had 2, Doolin had 1. The offensive line, however, couldn't run block. And the team still finished with 7 yards to play. We talked about the big plays, but the defensive line got absolutely gashed on the ground. Time of possession, the Colts only had 20 minutes time of possessions. Run defense is supposed to be their strength, and it wasn't yesterday. That could be a concern in this one if you're asking them to win by margin.
Love the analysis. Yeah, Teddy. I mean, Jordan Love to Malik Willis. I remember when Malik Willis came out of Liberty, and that strength of schedule moving up to the NFL is just night and day. And totally agree with you in his NFL performance so far. Great stuff there, TC. 273-274 up next, 10 a.m. Pacific. Cleveland and Jacksonville. We are seeing the Jags actually anywhere from -3 to -4, 3 in the hook included, 41.5 being the total. It's Browns at Jags from North Florida.
Look ahead line, Jacksonville -2, total 44.5. My powering number, Jags -4. The markets opened 3 last night. I'm going to call the markets 4 this morning. Drew, we've seen Jacksonville money over the course of the last half hour or hour, and that's pushed it at most books. It's sitting at 4 right now. There's still a couple of 3.5s out there for the Jags. The 3 is a stale number. That's not refreshing properly on the WagerTalk live odds screen. That happens sometimes. That's why we have all those books up there. Total sitting 41.5, 42. We've seen some under money in early week play. And look, I mean, the Browns is a lying box score for Cleveland because the yardage was relatively even. The first downs were relatively even. And if you just look at the box score, you say, oh, it's the -2 turnovers, the -2 turnovers, the difference in the game. It wasn't. All right. Cleveland was awful yesterday. Or Dallas was great, and probably some combination thereof. But Deshaun Watson, again, he hadn't played since last November. He didn't play in the preseason. He's got a new offense to work with. And he had 51 dropbacks for 137 net yards, missing receivers. Deshaun Watson looked washed yesterday. He was sacked 6 times. He was intercepted twice. He wasn't sharp, and it looked pretty awful. That being said, it's only his 13th game in a Browns uniform. He hasn't even played a full season in Cleveland yet. That being said, the quote, Pro Bowl guard Joel Bitonio, they came out and hit us in the face on both sides. It was disappointing, and it was. The Jags had a 14-0 lead and then didn't score a point after halftime. Had second half 4 punts, 1 stopped on down, and then the Trevor and Etienne fumble as he was going into the end zone that completely changed the game because it was the next play, I think, or 2 plays later that Tua hit Hill on the long bomb, and next thing you know, Miami was back in it. Game tied. Jags have a chance for the game-winning drive. What happens? Offensive line play was a problem for this team last year. And what happened this year? Well, Anton Harrison gives up a sack on one play. Cam Robinson gives up sacks on the next play. They couldn't get anything in short yardage. This is an offensive line that is still was a concern last year and certainly was a concern in that game against Miami. Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, turnovers are killers, especially in the red zone. We still have plenty of time in the game. We have to be able to handle the adversity and go score in the next series. So we've seen Jacksonville money up to 4. I don't know that it gets any higher than this, so we're not putting an emergency betting alert for the Jags and the Browns.
Shout out to Joe and Dan behind the scenes. The graphics are up there, guys. We're listening to you. Let us know in the comments below where you agree, where you disagree, any thoughts on the show, and any questions, fire away as well. As we got a couple more 1 p.m. Eastern kicks before we hit the afternoon slate here, guys, as we got San Francisco and Minnesota up next. Of course, the 49ers playing in Monday Night Football here, but we are seeing them lay -5.5 as the road favorite. 45 being the total here, Teddy. So it's 49ers at Vikings from Minnesota.
Yeah, look headline for San Fran, -7, 45.5. My powering number is only -5. We had to raise Minnesota off yesterday. They were clearly the better team. And they obviously look pretty good in that ball game. Although, again, you want to take it with a grain of salt, but you still had to raise. I had to raise my Vikings power rating. My Vikings power rating was too low. So my power rating number is 5. The market's opened 5.5, 45.5 last night, and that's kind of what we're seeing this morning. 5.5. And 45/45.5. San Fran will play tonight. Obviously, we'll see how the Niners look. Is likely to affect this point spread in a pretty significant way. How about this one? Vikings won by 22 against the Giants yesterday. That was the single largest margin of victory since Kevin O'Connell was hired in 2022. They'd won 20 games during that span. 17 of those 20 wins were by a single score. So they have not been capable of beating teams by margin. Sam Darnold played well yesterday, only 5 incompletions. Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler kept the chains moving on the ground. And most impressively, perhaps, the defense held the Giants to 3.5 yards per play. Kevin O'Connell after the game. Sam Darnold, for a new guy in a new system, to start 12 for 12, and be incredibly poised throughout the day, it was a huge performance for us to be able to build off of. But worth noting with Minnesota, even though I adjusted them up, well, now you're not buying low necessarily on the Vikings coming off. You know, we talk about playing the Giants one week and San Fran the next. It's like playing the White Sox one day and then the Dodgers the next. You know, it's a much tougher competition. We'll see how Minnesota handles it this time around.
Great stat there, Teddy, with that single score victory stat, man. Seattle and New England up next. We're seeing 37.5 to as high as 38.5 as the total, with the Seahawks -3 and a hook as the road favorite. So it's Seahawks at Patriots.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's what I do on Sunday nights. After the games are over, after I've adjusted all my numbers, I'm just looking for interesting stats, something that gives us a little bit more, because there's so much that you see in the sports betting markets right now that's just, this is what it is, and these are some stats and running stuff off. I want the nuances. I want the quotes. That's where you actually make money in the association. Straight statistical analysis by itself isn't going to help you a lot, but I always like to try to give real, meaningful betting numbers when I talk on this show. Seattle against the Patriots. Look at a line. Seattle -3.5, 41. My powering number was 3. The market's open 3/3.5. They've moved pretty much to 3.5 this morning across the board. So we're seeing 3.5s here. A little bit of Seattle money. I mean, the Seahawks, they started the game. I talked about how Dallas started the game lousy and then it got better. Seattle was the same story. First play, a sack. Next play, an interception. You know, just like we want to start. Drew it up that way. We wanted some adversity there. The offensive line got destroyed in the first half. This was a tale of two halves. Kenneth Walker, quote, "We went in and made adjustments. Everybody was locked in. We were poised. Everything didn't go as planned, as you saw in the first half, but after the adjustments, you felt we played as a team much better." The defense held Denver to 1 of 4 in the red zone and forced 3 turnovers. They did lose starting tackle George Fant to a knee injury. That's worth noting. But certainly Mike McDonald's career as a head coach started a little bit weird, got a lot better in the second half. We like the halftime adjustments they made. That's worth noting. For the Patriots, I mean, they did exactly what I thought they were going to do yesterday in the sense of play an extremely conservative game plan. Jacoby Brissett, the only goal for him is no mistakes. 25 dropbacks, 120 total yards. It's all dinks and dunks. They didn't have a pass play of more than 20 yards. It's Ramondre Stevenson, 125 yards and 25 carries. That's what they want to do. Longest completion to receiver, 17 yards in that ballgame. New England, as I said last week, remains for me the number 1 under team in the NFL. The market's kind of agreeing with this total from as high as 41, 42 at the opener Now we're looking at 38s in the market for Patriots and Seahawks. Unfortunately, the markets have seen this pretty clearly, like I expected they would. At least we got one bet in, cashing in New England under. I may well play it again this week, even at the bad number. But Patriots under, unfortunately, the markets have realized what's going on in New England already. So this is going to be a team playing games in the 20s and 30s, not in the 40s and 50s.
We're talking the Jets and the Titans up next as the Jets play Monday Night Football here, guys. Keep that in mind. But, Teddy, we're seeing the Jets minus 4-point road favorites in Nashville, 42 being the total. This is a tough one for me, Teddy. I had Titans plus the points in my pocket yesterday, up 17-0 and losing the bet. That one hurt, but I'll throw it over to you. Jets at Titans.
Yeah, Chicago scored 100. Well, we'll talk about the Bears. We'll talk about the Bears. That was the worst beat of the day, for what it's worth. So at least, and there's a great stat. I think teams that were like Chicago were like 3 and 1,225 straight up. Before, man. It was 3 and 1,224. Now it's 3 and 1,225. No, they won. It was 2 and 2,000. Basically, it happens, once every 500 games. When a team doesn't score an offensive touchdown and then covers his chalk, it's the exception rather than the rule. When it comes to the Jets and the Titans, look headline here: Jets 4, 43.5. My powering number's higher than that, 5.5. The markets today are sitting 4, 4.5, 43.5. We don't know what the Jets are going to do if they look good on Monday Night Football. This could easily come 7. Look, Will Levis looked like a rookie quarterback yesterday. 2 turnovers, 3 sacks, only 104 net passing yards on 35 dropbacks. Not good. There were lots. And again, they have Calvin Ridley. They have Tyler Boyd. They have DeAndre Hopkins. This team has weapons. That said, Hopkins was banged up. The receiving corps didn't do a whole lot. They did shut down Chicago's offense. They gave up 17 points on turnovers. Brian Callahan, after his debut, it was a winning effort on defense. They did a really nice job. They made life hard for those guys, exactly like how we wanted to, and we just handed them points. Will Levis, we just got to be better. That's not us. The first half was the winning offensive football game. Second half, that'll lose you games. Not good across the board. Tennessee did come out of that game basically healthy.
Teddy, next game up, we got the New York Giants, and they are in our nation's capital up against Washington here. The Commanders minus 2.5. That's Washington as the home favorite. 43.5 being the consensus total. So an NFC matchup here, NFC East division matchup, Giants at Commanders.
Yeah, I'm running a little bit long today, so I'll try to pick up the pace down the stretch here. Washington, look ahead line, minus 2.5, total 41.5. My powering number, minus 2.5 on the ball game. We're seeing today, minus 2.5. It opened last night. There were 2.5s and 3s. So someone took the Giants plus 3 because I'm not seeing the 3s out there this morning. Total 41.5 at the opener for the Giants. And we've seen nothing but over money, now up to 43.5. Significant move on this total. Wise guys have pounded the over here. Not my money. Teddy. Danny Dimes, 47 dropbacks for 166 net yards. He was sacked 5 times. He threw 2 picks. The running backs had 14 carries for 45 yards. They gained only 3.5 yards per play. They obviously went 0-3 in the red zone, and they had 9 penalties. The hot seat's getting really hot for Brian DeBall right now. This is a pressure-packed game for the G-men. If they start 0-2, that pressure's just going to start heating up. There was no downfield passing game for the Giants, and they spent all summer working on the downfield passing game. So maybe the markets expect to see some of that this week. That's why we're seeing the over money come in. And, of course, the Giants' defense didn't force a completion by Sam Darnold until less than 2 minutes left in the first half. From the Washington side of the equation, look, this box score lies. Washington got all their first downs and all their yards after Tampa was in control of the ballgame in the second half. They allowed scores on 7 of 8 meaningful Tampa possessions. And Jaden Williams, look, a rookie cornerback, no turnovers his debut, but he's also their leading rusher. And that is not necessarily what you want to see. 16 carries, 88 yards, and 17 completions out of 24 attempts. His quote after the game, I grade myself hard. We didn't win. I like to win. Overall, it went pretty well. There's some stuff as an offense we left on the field. We got to execute better. It's a long season. We're going to move on. Yeah. Dan Quinn, And I thought some of the quotes about Jaden Daniels were important. And I said I'd go quick, and I'm reading extra quotes, but I have to here. Dan Quinn, I thought he got to fully express all the things that he has, using his legs, being aggressive down the field. Like a number of players tonight, there's going to be a lot of takeaways. What I can tell you, we have one heck of a competitor. Offensive guard Sam Cosmi, his ability to stay calm amidst adversity was very strong. I didn't feel any panic. Terry McLaughlin, the receiver, it was really his poise in the pocket. The biggest thing that stood out was the way he communicated, and he has the upbeat mentality. So really positive quotes from Jaden Daniels after that ball game. There were no positive quotes on the Giants sideline.
That's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern kicks in the books. We got 3 afternoon kicks here. That's something, if you've been watching the show for multiple years, Teddy and I both agree on. They loaded up too early, Teddy. It's 10 games. It's too hard to keep up with. But either way, we got 2-8-3, 2-8-4 up next, Rams and Cardinals. We are seeing LA Rams -1, -1.5 as the road favorite. 49.5 to as high as 50 and a hook being the total. It's the Rams at the Cardinals in the desert, TC.
Look ahead line, LA -2, 48. My powering number, LA -2. The markets opened 1.5 last night. Sorry, to say this morning. They played last night. Total of 50. And that's basically what we're seeing right now. Really haven't seen any line movement on this game at all. The Rams rallied from behind, a poor first half yesterday, the turnover before halftime, and still had a lead down the stretch with an opportunity to win the game. They lost the toss in OT, and that was that. Sean McVay, I'm really proud of this group. We had a lot of guys dove down, and a lot of people stepped up. We just came up short. You have to note the injuries for the Rams right now. Big injuries all over the field, certainly on the offensive side of the football. Puka Nakua's out. Cluster injuries on the offensive line. 4 of their 5 starters out. Both tackles hurt. The replacement swing tackle, Joe Noteboom, he got hurt too. They're coming off an overtime game where they lost. These are all pretty big negatives for LA when it comes to trends and angles and that sort of thing. You don't want teams off an overtime loss, and you certainly don't want teams with cluster injuries in the offensive line. That being said, Arizona looked pretty, they started out really strong, scored in each of their first 3 drives, and they finished the game with 270 total yards. They had a kickoff return touchdown and still didn't win. The defense got absolutely gashed in that ball game. Jonathan Gannon, we got to be better. We were up 17-3 and lose the game. We have to keep the scoring up a little bit, especially when we have a lead. That is a coach that doesn't trust his defense just yet. I don't blame him. He gave up 14 plays of 10 or more yards in blowing that big lead at Buffalo.
285, 286 up next, 1:25 p.m. Pacific kick here. Cincinnati at Kansas City. We are seeing Chiefs -6-point home favorites, 48 and a hook being the total here. Teddy, it's Bengals at Chiefs in Arrowhead.
Yeah, look headline here. KC only -3.5, total 47.5. The markets have adjusted downward on Cincinnati in a significant way. My number on the game's KC 7, so I'm even higher than the markets right now. That, as you mentioned, sitting this morning, pretty much 6. There are still some 5.5s out there. I'm not so sure they're going to be here. Cincy was awful yesterday. There's no way to sugarcoat it. They only had 13 first downs, 224 total yards. They gave up 170 yards on the ground. They were outrushed by 100 yards. The offense had turned the ball over twice. The defense forced none. Burrow really hesitant to push the ball downfield. Healthy to start a season for the first time since rookie year. 164 passing yards. Certainly the fact T. Higgins didn't play, Jamar Chase banged, was not as explosive as he's been. He was dealing with food poisoning during the week. But since he wasn't good in that game, they weren't going to open the season last year or any year under Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor doesn't have him ready, and then this is something we want to remember for next year for sure, because it's been Cincy struggling week 1 again and again. Zach Taylor, quote, "We lost a turnover battle 3-0, one on offense, one on special teams, and one a turnover on down. Missed a lot of tackles today. No recipe in that style of game is to be able to win. We've got to be accountable for that." Of course, Kansas City, the Ravens had more first downs, nearly 100 more yards, but the KC defense, 1 of 4 touchdown opportunities for Baltimore in the red zone, and 5 pass plays of 23 yards or more. Last year, Kansas City's offense, dink and dunk for extended stretches. I'll put it to you this way. Right now, my Chiefs powering number is higher than it was at any point last season. The defense still elite. The offense better than it was. That's my number on the game is 7, compared to the market's only 6.
Last afternoon kick up next here, guys. Pittsburgh Steelers, Denver Broncos. We are seeing Steelers -3 with juice pretty much across the board here, TC. Low total, just 37. Steelers at Broncos from a mile high.
Look at line here. Pittsburgh -3, 40.5. My powering number, Pittsburgh -1.5 in that ball game. The markets say I'm either too low on Pittsburgh or too high on Denver. Opened 2.5, 3 last night. Bet up to 3 with juice at a lot of spots. All that being said, I'm not anticipating this line's going to go to 3.5. It could, but I'm not convinced that it will. I'll say this for Sean Payton. That was a bizarre game plan. A bizarre game plan for a rookie quarterback making his first road start. 44 dropbacks, 132 net yards, first career start on the road. And he was also the team's leading rusher. There was no running game at all. They finished with 3.3 yards per play on offense. And that's not a great defense they faced in Seattle. Might be good. It's not great. Steelers defense was great yesterday. They only had 2 offensive plays of more than 12 yards. George Pickens had a big catch and Najee Harris had a big run. They only gained 4.1 yards per play. They didn't score a touchdown. 6 field goals, no touchdowns. Okay. That being said, 3 of the 6 field goals from 50-plus yards. Not like this offense was any good. But the defense dominated. J.J. Watt was a monster. They only allowed 2 third-down conversions. The defense forced 3 turnovers. The offense didn't commit any. Don't know yet if it's going to be Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. You know me. I don't want Russell Wilson as my QB. I think Fields is the better option. I said that in August. And I think after he won the game yesterday, they're likely to come back with him. But that's something worth paying attention to. My willingness to back Pittsburgh in this game is entirely predicated on Fields being the starting QB, not Russell Wilson, who played for this team last year and who the coaching staff, in theory, is going to know pretty well how to defend.
We got the Sunday night game up next, guys. Chicago Bears and Houston Texans. Texans -6 and a hook. There is a -7 out there in the global market. 46 being the total. You already talked a little Bears stats there, Teddy, with a wild one, but I'll throw it over to you. Bears and Texans, Sunday Night Football.
Look headline here, Houston -3.5, total 46.5. My powering number has the Texans -5.5 for this ball game. I did not downgrade Chicago as much as some other people did. The markets opened 6.5 and 46. And basically that's what we're seeing now. There are some 45.5s out there. And if you like the under, you might want to get down on the under 46 right now. The leading indicator books are telling me that this number could easily go down. It's not worthy of an emergency betting alert. I only have the one emergency betting alert this week for game 1 on Sunday, that Raiders-Ravens game. But if you like the under, consider it now. I'll leave it at that. Look, Caleb Williams got a win in his debut. The last 15 number 1 picks are combined 0-14 and 1 in their first starts. That began with Carson Palmer in Cincinnati in 2003. And Williams broke that streak yesterday despite 14 of 29 for 93 yards, sacked twice, no touchdowns. The running game didn't work either. 22 for 84. The offense produced only 3 field goals. That being said, Caleb Williams, it was a frustrating game. But the most important thing, it shows we had a bunch of personality from this team, I would say. The fight, the resiliency that we had, that's meaningful to me. Brian Callahan, they did a really, Titans head coach Brian Callahan talked about the defense. They did a really nice job, the Bears defense. They did a nice job. They made life hard for those guys exactly how we wanted to, and we just handed them points. So basically, he knows that they gave the game away. The Texans were great. They won their 9th consecutive road game. When you talk about Stroud to Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Steph Diggs, I mean, between them, they had 15 catches, close to 200 yards. Joe Mixon dominated on the ground. They had 40 minutes of possession. They scored touchdowns on all 3 of the red zone opportunities. Houston was an overachiever last year. There were some questions as to whether they were going to be able to sustain that success. And look, they wasted a scoring chance before halftime in a weird scenario where the clock ran out. They had a punt blocked, and they still won straight up on the road. The markets are paying attention to that today. Houston is a team that has absolutely seen a power rating adjustment from where they were. Again, this look at line was 3.5 on this game. Now 6.5, 7. The markets have adjusted both teams off their week 1 showings.
Guys, let us know in the comments below where you agree, where you disagree, your NFL picks. Any questions as well? We are up against it time-wise for the Week 2 show, but as the show goes on, we'll try to answer some questions, so feel free to fire away in the comments below. Teddy, bring in the heat. Smash that like button out. It helps us out, guys, as we're looking to grow the show. We got Monday Night Football here to end it, TC. Atlanta and Philadelphia, 48.5 being the total. We are seeing Eagles -6 in the hook, pretty much across the board. Some juice on that hook as well at a couple global shops. But it's the Dirty Birds and Eagles fly to end it here, TC, Monday Night Football.
And let me be really clear. If you want a pretty girl to get your picks from or your NFL information from, this is not the right show for you. If you want lots of BS stats and info that aren't going to help you win any bets, this isn't the right show for you. This show is going to be like what you saw today. Every week, stats that matter, quotes that matter, numbers that matter, theory that matters. My goal is to get you guys ready from this one show to sit down and handicap the NFL card moving forward. Every week, I'm going to bring it. Every week. Drew is too. Please come and join us. And if you like this show, please tell your friends. Like Drew said, we're really in growth mode this year. So I don't ask anything. I really don't. I'll give you everything I got every week. But if you can, tell your friends. We appreciate the likes. We appreciate the comments so very, very much. I'll be in the comment section either later today or tomorrow. I'll answer every comment. Literally, there's 100. I'll answer all 100 of you. Thank you for doing what you do. We talk about the Falcons, the Eagles. Look ahead line at Philly -4, 47.5. Big adjustment, eh? My priority number, Philly -7. I had to downgrade Atlanta off yesterday. They weren't good, and they weren't good for a reason. Markets open 6, 6.5, 48.5. We're seeing mostly 6.5 right now, so the 6s are pretty much gone for Philly. And, I mean, we can't sugarcoat what happened to Atlanta yesterday. They went 2 of 9 on third downs. They had 226 total yards. They had only 4.5 yards per play. They had -3 in turnovers on offense, and defense didn't force any. Kirk Cousins hasn't played since last October. Didn't play in the preseason. Looked awful. 16 to 26, 100. Not awful, but he didn't look good. He wasn't comfortable. The offense wasn't in any kind of a sync. And it might take him a couple of weeks. Because if a QB coming off an Achilles, and it is on a new team and a new offense, and he hasn't played. So Atlanta might get better somewhere down the line, but they sure weren't good right now. Raheem Morris absolutely crashed and burned in his first head coaching tenure at Tampa Bay. Some of that might have been, what was the guy's name? Josh Freeman was the quarterback there. Some of that might have been Freeman, but Morris was the guy coaching him up. And it was a disaster. He didn't make it through his second season. Raheem Morris, quote, "We've got to have the ability to execute against anyone. When you play a team like this, with the defense they have, you know it's going to be a dirty game, but we had our opportunities." All right. Atlanta brought back their entire offensive line. They've got 3 top 10 picks in Robinson, London, and Pitts to throw the ball to. Cousins has $100 million guaranteed, and they had 45 yards in the second half of that ball game. Look, as for Philly, though, beware. Defense allowed 7.1 yards per play. Offense gained only 5.5. I know they won the game. I know they covered the point spread. I know their playmakers made plays all game long, but they were outgained by 1.6 yards per play. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. To me, that's not the recipe of a team I'm looking to lay a touchdown with on Monday Night Football, especially when they're likely to be the public side.
Teddy, jam-packed show, man. Not sure if you have anything left. I know we're over time-wise, but I'll throw it over to you. Any final thoughts before we shut this down?
Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games. And again, last week, record number of viewers for OLR. I appreciate all of you. Tell your friends. Let's do it again this week. Cheers, guys. And of course, visit the website, WagerTalk.com. Visit my page, wt.buzz/TC, Teddy Covers. That'll send you right to my page at WagerTalk.com if you want to take advantage of the special offers that we talked about. $199, college and NFL, 30 days, all access. Use it for me, use it for Drew. It starts on Tuesday, September 10th, so you can't get it today on Monday. But you can get it. Many of you watch it on replay starting tomorrow. Take advantage of this offer if you want to get on board. 30-day all access pass. No promo code needed. Thanks for watching. Good luck.
He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. That does it for Week 2 NFL Opening Line Report. We'll be back next Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Come back and join us for Week 3. check it out. Smash that like button, comment below, cash those tickets.